Welcome to this video demonstration of XebiaLabs, XebiaLabs' deployment tool for getting your applications onto your machines, whether those machines reside in your own data center or in the cloud or a combination of the two. XebiaLabs will get them there for you. XebiaLabs is an enterprise tool. It has full role-based access and will hook into your existing Active Directory or LDAP structures so that you can use the groups that you have today. Most of what I'm going to show you today will be around the admin user, so we'll see all of the functionality that the tool has to offer. But you can break this down and make sure that your different teams, if you have them, have the ability to see the things that they need to see. Logging into the tool, you are by default taken to our HTML5 interface, which will give you very quick access to do the deployments you need to do. So, what is a deployment? Well, first of all, we have to think about what an application is. And this really is where XebiaLabs differs from most of the tools that are in use today, because we think of the application as a single entity. It doesn't matter if you consider an application to be a single service running on a Docker container in the cloud, or whether it's a monolithic group of components that need to be distributed across a bunch of servers in your data center. In this case, the application I'm going to demonstrate is our Pet Portal application, which is a three-tier web application with a database, web content and application server components, including configuration, that we want to deploy to a particular environment. You can see in our applications list we have a whole host of different types of applications for a variety of platforms. These may be Windows, these may be distributed platforms such as Linux or Unix flavors. It could be that you have some components that are going to be deployed on your mainframe. In this case, we consider the different versions of the applications, and this really shows that XebiaLabs picks up from where your continuous integration tools leave off. So if we think about what, say, for example, Jenkins or Bamboo or TFS are delivering to us, they're going to deliver to us a package of components that we want distributed onto our servers. These are the components listed for this particular application. Equally, this could have been a Windows platform type application with registry settings, services, MSIs, application pool configurations. Whatever it is you want to deploy, these are shown in this screen here. We'll actually go ahead and we'll deploy version 1 of our Pet Portal application. So we click on the context menu for the application and we click on deploy. Now we just need to choose where we want to deploy that application to. You configure environments which are collections of infrastructure, and I'll show this a bit later on in the demo, but for the sake of showing how the demo works, I will pick our test environment and I will continue with the deployment. Now you can see what has happened is all of the components have actually been mapped onto the infrastructure within the test environment. XebiaLabs has detected that this is an initial deployment. This means it knows that there is nothing on that environment at the moment. And what it has to do is map all of the components across. And here is where we get to see the main advantage of modeling your applications in this way against other tools in the ecosystem. So most tools doing deployments today think about the workflow of what has to be done. For example, if I'm thinking about running my database scripts or installing my AIR files on an application server, I'll be writing scripts or a workflow that says something along the lines of copy an artifact over to the target and execute this script or command. What XebiaLabs has done is it's figured out where all these components need to go, and then it's generated that plan for you. And you can see here in our preview, which without even touching the environment, you get to explore all of the steps that have to happen to get this application up and running in our test environment. And this is crucial. This is what makes XebiaLabs really scalable. It's the fact that it knows there was nothing on this environment and it's generated the plan to get these components onto their relevant infrastructure. You can see clearly where these different components have been mapped, and you can see on here that we are going to run, for example, all the scripts contained within our SQL component, just as an example. When I click deploy, what we are going to do now is execute that plan. And that execution is now doing all of the things that you'll have written scripts for if you've done this yourself or used a workflow-based tool. It's copying the artifacts over to the targets, wherever they may be, and it's executing the commands needed to get those components up and running on those targets. We actually also included a couple of components to help us test that this deployment was successful. When we finished our deployment, we can tell the application that that's been done, and we can see the results over here on our environments. So you can see now that the test environment does indeed have our pet portal application version 1 on that target. If I want to see that application, I can navigate to its address and I can see that we have that application running. Now, version 1 deployments are obviously, if you're treating these targets as pets, something you do right at the start, but most deployments thereafter are incremental upgrades. So for example, your developers have developed new features and functionality, and the continuous integration server has generated a new package for you to deploy to all of your different environments. So let's take a look at version 2. We can see we have a version 2 package and we want to deploy this to our test environment. So let's do the same, exactly the same process we did before. And this is what XebiaLabs is doing. It's bringing that consistency to your deployment mechanisms. And now we can see that XebiaLabs has shown this is an update deployment. We were at version 1. We are now updating this environment to be version 2. If we click on the preview, we can see again the power of generating this deployment plan. Because I know that in this environment only a couple of components have changed. We've got some different web content and we've got some new database scripts. And if we have a look at the preview, this demonstrates this because the only actions that we're going to perform during this deployment are for those different components. We have an extra script in our DB scripts. We're going to remove and deploy the latest version of the web content. This is what XebiaLabs has generated for us. When we click on deploy, we are faced with the same approach. We can see that everything's been done, and we can see the logs, something I didn't show you in the first deployment, but we can see the logs of the activity during that deployment. So we can actually verify that things did happen as we thought they would. And we've brought that environment up to version 2. Now if I refresh my page, you can see that we have actually updated that pet portal application on our test environment. What we've also noticed, and this is maybe some exploratory testing has shown this, that isn't actually what we want it to look like. We have a problem with this version. That's not a problem for XebiaLabs, because one of the features that XebiaLabs has, because it can generate this plan to bring us up to version 2, it can also generate the plan, the rollback plan in this case, to bring us back to where we were, because we weren't happy with that deployment. And what we're doing is we're effectively performing another update in deployment, but we're utilizing the rollback scripts that our developers supplied as part of their SQL updates, and we're redeploying the web content. They're the only things we changed when we did this deployment. Having done that, I can now check that site just to make sure that we have our old version of our application on there again, and we can finish this deployment. In my next video, what I will show you is how we configured XL-Deploy to contain that information, the knowledge of what's on our environments and the knowledge of what's in our applications, how we produce those applications, and then we'll start to look at some of the reporting available to XL-Deploy.